Before we dive into tonight's story, make sure you hit that subscribe button because what you're about to hear is the kind of tragedy that reminds us how one reckless decision can end more than just a life, it can end a dream. It was just after midnight on July 6, 2024. The streets of Prince George's County, Maryland were slick from a brief summer rain. Streetlights flickered on empty stretches of highway, and the world felt half asleep, except for 3 cars cutting through the darkness at dangerous speed. Witnesses would later describe it as a blur of headlights, 3 vehicles weaving, accelerating, pushing the edge of control. In the middle of it all was a Dodge Charger carrying 3 young men, Khyree Jackson, a 24-year-old NFL rookie for the Minnesota Vikings, his childhood friends, Hazel and Anthony Lytton Jr. They weren't supposed to die that night. They were supposed to celebrate. Young men who had made it out, who had beaten the odds. Jackson had gone from working retail jobs to hearing his name called on draft night. He told reporters just weeks earlier, "I feel like my story's just getting started." But in the darkness behind them, an Infiniti Q50 came tearing up the lane. Behind the wheel was 23-year-old Cori Clingman, according to investigators. She'd been drinking that evening, celebrating something of her own, and her blood alcohol content would later confirm what police already suspected. As the car sped down Route 4, Clingman's Infiniti switched lanes at over 100 miles per hour. The impact was so sudden, witnesses said they didn't even have time to brake. Metal crunched, glass exploded, and in one horrific second, the Charger veered off the road, colliding with trees along the shoulder. The crash site was chaos. Twisted steel, shattered glass, and the faint hum of an engine dying in the night. Officers responding to the 911 calls described the scene as devastating. Firefighters had to pry open the wreckage. Inside, they found 3 young men, lifeless. Khyree Jackson's phone was still open to a text message he never sent. By sunrise, the news was everywhere. NFL rookie Khyree Jackson killed in car crash. Reporters gathered outside the Vikings training facility, and teammates struggled to find words. Head coach O'Connell said quietly, "We lost a brother." But while tributes poured in online, investigators began piecing together a darker story, one that wasn't just about a tragic accident, but a chain of reckless decisions that led to 3 funerals. The black box from the Infiniti would later reveal more than just speed. It told the story of arrogance behind the wheel, a split-second gamble with 3 lives at stake. And as detectives traced Clingman's route that night, they uncovered surveillance footage that raised chilling questions. Because just minutes before the crash, cameras caught her car pulling out from a nearby bar. The timestamp? Less than 10 minutes before impact. That footage would become the key piece of evidence, proof that what happened wasn't random, it was preventable. But the true shock came days later, when detectives pulled phone records and discovered who Clingman had been texting in the minutes leading up to the crash. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone who had warned her not to drive. Someone she ignored. And when police confronted her with the messages, her reaction stunned even the most seasoned investigators. Because the story she told didn't add up. They called it the 10-minute window, the final moments before the crash. 10 minutes where everything could have been stopped. 10 minutes where one decision could have saved 3 lives. Detectives from the Prince George's County Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Unit spent weeks reconstructing the timeline. Surveillance cameras, cell phone data, and bar receipts all painted a picture that was as disturbing as it was heartbreaking.
At 11:47 p.m., Cori Clingman and 2 friends left a crowded lounge off Largo Center Drive. The bartender later confirmed she had a few drinks before insisting she was fine to drive. By 11:55 p.m., she was behind the wheel of her Infiniti, music blaring, tires squealing as she accelerated toward the highway. Then came the texts. At 11:58 p.m., a message appeared from a contact saved as J. "Cori, don't drive. Call an Uber. I'm serious." Her reply came seconds later. "I'm good. Just need to get home. I'm not drunk." Investigators found that was the last message she sent before her phone disconnected at the moment of impact. 12:03 a.m. To the detectives piecing together those final minutes, it wasn't just data. It was a record of denial, overconfidence, and the illusion of control. And for the families of Khyree Jackson and his friends, it became proof that their deaths were not just an accident, but a tragedy born of negligence. In the days following the crash, the community went silent. Mourners lined up outside Wise High School, where the three young men had once played football together. Old teammates hugged in disbelief. Coaches spoke about their discipline, their dreams, their bond. Three lives intertwined from childhood, ended on the same night, on the same stretch of road. Meanwhile, investigators gathered every possible detail. Skid marks, tire patterns, impact trajectories, each clue pointing to one chilling conclusion. The Infiniti was traveling over 106 miles per hour when it struck the Charger. The prosecutor's office reviewed the evidence with grim expressions. "This isn't a mistake," one of them said during the preliminary meeting. "It's a chain reaction of choices." Then came the discovery that turned the case from tragic to criminal. Toxicology results confirmed that Clingman's blood alcohol content was over twice the legal limit. When confronted with the findings, she reportedly broke down in the interrogation room. "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean for anyone to die." But meaning wasn't enough. Intent or not, three families would never see their sons again. The media swarmed outside the courthouse as charges were filed. 3 counts of negligent homicide while under the influence. Clingman's face appeared on every major network. Her name, once anonymous, became attached to headlines dripping with anger and disbelief. Online, the comments were merciless, some demanding justice, others questioning how many times this same story had been told in America. A young driver, one bad night, and lives cut short. For Kyree's mother, it was unbearable. She refused interviews, but at the memorial, her words echoed through the chapel. He worked his whole life to make it out, and someone else's mistake took it all away. As the case gained national attention, new questions began to surface. Why had no one stopped Clingman from driving that night? Who were the friends that left the bar with her? And why did one of them disappear before police could question them? By mid-August, detectives had a new theory, one that hinted at more than recklessness. They believed there might have been a cover-up. Because someone, they discovered, had tried to delete the surveillance footage from the lounge hours after the crash.
When investigators traced the deletion attempt back to a phone number, they found something that sent chills down their spines. The number belonged to someone Clingman had been with that night, someone who wasn't supposed to be there at all. The deletion attempt wasn't random. When investigators pulled the phone records linked to the erased footage, a name surfaced that complicated everything. Jordan Reese, a longtime friend of Cori Clingman, and one of the people seen leaving the lounge with her that night. Detectives tracked Jordan down 2 weeks later. He looked exhausted, pale, and nervous when they brought him in for questioning. The truth came out slowly, piece by piece, like a puzzle no one wanted to finish. Jordan admitted that Cori had been drinking heavily that night. He told officers he had offered to drive, but she insisted she was fine, that she'd driven home plenty of times after worse nights. He claimed she laughed it off, tossed him her keys as a joke, then snatched them back before storming out. But what the detectives really wanted to know was why he tried to delete the footage. At first, he denied it. Then, after hours of silence, he confessed. "I panicked. I didn't want her life to be over too. It was a desperate act, one that didn't change the facts, but it revealed a cruel irony. In trying to protect his friend, he'd only deepened the damage." The digital trace of his deletion attempt became the nail in the coffin for Cori's defense. By early 2025, the case went to court. The trial drew national attention. Every headline carried Khyree Jackson's photo, smiling, proud in his Vikings jersey, beside images of the mangled Charger pulled from the trees.
Prosecutors laid out the evidence: the surveillance footage, the toxicology report, the text messages, the black box data, and Jordan's testimony. Piece by piece, they built a story that left little room for doubt. Cori sat motionless through most of it. When her attorney spoke, he painted her as a young woman who made a terrible mistake. Not a monster, just human. He said she didn't wake up that day intending to take lives. But intent doesn't erase responsibility. The courtroom was heavy with grief. At one point, Khyree's mother stood and walked out. She couldn't listen anymore. When the verdict was read, there was no applause, no outburst, only silence. Cori Clingman was found guilty on all 3 counts of negligent homicide under the influence. As deputies led her away, reporters outside captured the moment. Flashbulbs popped. People shouted. But for the families, there was no justice that could bring peace. Only a quiet, aching finality. Weeks later, before sentencing, Cori wrote a letter from jail. It was released through her lawyer. In it, she said, "If I could trade places with them, I would. I wish I had listened. I wish someone had taken my keys. I wish I could undo everything." She ended the letter with a message that rippled across social media. Don't drive drunk. Don't let anyone you love drive drunk. One choice, one moment, and everything is gone. On November 7th, 2025, Cori Clingman stood before the judge. She didn't make excuses. She pleaded guilty. The courtroom was silent as the sentence was read. 10 years. Outside, news anchors called it closure. But for those who knew Khyree Jackson, his teammates, his family, his friends, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a scar that would never fade. The headlines would move on. The world would forget. But every July, when the summer storms rolled through Maryland, someone would leave flowers on that stretch of highway. 3 names written in silver marker on the guardrail. And the story of that night, of youth, pride, and a decision that cost everything, would echo through every driver who thought, "It won't happen to me." If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe because the next case is even darker.